It's the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. If you don't know, now you know. If you ain't listening, why not? Boom.
This is the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Scotty, Brian, and Mike, with the quick picks that'll make you the quick bucks. We're going to succinctly cover the quick picks that will make you money. Now let's get into it. All right. So to start us off, it's going to be me choosing my first quarterback pick. And I think you guys have finally gotten me on the wagon here on some Joe Burrow. I've been fighting against it, probably because he's on the Bengals and because that O-line is weak. But this is the third week in a row he's thrown for 300 plus yards, and he's still sitting at a really good price point with the $6,000. The game script definitely looks like they're going to be playing from behind against Baltimore, so it's going to be more throwing. The Ravens are pretty good against the run, which is going to stack up that and make it a little bit more difficult for Mixon to do what he did last week. Also, the wide receiver core, pretty cheap in pricing. You can pair him up with what I think is the better receiver with Boyd, and Boyd is sitting at 6,200. Pair him up with Joe Burrow, and it's 12,000 right there. Pretty reasonable for a good QB and a good wide receiver one. Total points is looking at 51, and I just think it could be. I think everybody's going to be getting on the train soon, and it seems like for good reason. But right now, I still think the price point, he's got some value in there.
I don't know if I like him this week.
Why? Because everybody else is going to be on him?
No. I don't. The Baltimore defense is kind of tough. I just don't know if he's going to outscore the other players around his price point or even lower.
I always seem to be off on the wrong week against you guys.
I love Joe Burrow, and he could certainly do it.
You just think it'll be difficult against him?
I'm looking at a few of these other games, and that also have cheap options at quarterback, and I'm just, how well is he going to be able to do against this Baltimore defense? He might still get the 300 yards, but is he going to get the
touchdowns?
3 or 4 touchdowns to really, bring in the game?
Yeah. The biggest reason that I was sticking on him is because also I think that their Baltimore's D is really good against the run. So I think that's going to kind of limit Mixon's work.
Yeah, but they also aren't bad against the pass.
True.
And they're actually there's more talent in their secondary. Even though it did take a small hit with Earl Thomas being gone, but it's still a talented secondary.
Yeah.
And really how they stop the run, they don't do it with as much like these big powerful pass rushers like other teams do.
Yeah.
They do it more with scheme.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting, good defense. I don't know if
don't like him this week.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the week to go in on Burrow just with the slate playing out.
All right, Scotty, your pick.
All right. So for me this week, I'm actually looking at some Daniel Jones going against Dallas. He's sitting at a really good price point at 5,400. Probably one of the cheapest starting quarterbacks that's not likely to get swapped around. Mm-hmm. It is a 54-point total, which I think is the second or third highest on the slate. And they do have Dallas favored by 9.5. This will be the Giants' first game against a pass defense that's outside of the top 10. Their first 4 games against San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and the Rams are all top 10 pass defenses, and Jones hasn't looked very good in any of those games.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a matchup where he can bounce back.
Plus, they haven't been able to run it at all.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The run game just has not been too inspiring, so it's going to be on him to win this game.
Yeah, and even the running backs in there, he's been throwing it too. So it's been all throwing.
He also has a little bit of rushing upside himself. So
Right.
at
True.
5,400 to get that dual threat against the Cowboys, who haven't stopped anyone, I definitely like that as even as a sneaky pick this week to kind of go against these more chalkier stacks like I'm probably about to talk about here.
All right, go ahead and take it.
I gotta go back to my week 1 Bridgewater at 5,900.
Yep.
If the Kansas City game gets canceled this weekend, this becomes the highest total or the highest opening total on the slate. This game should be a shootout. You got 2 defenses who can't stop anything and 2 offenses who just like to throw the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I like both sides of this game, and we'll definitely be targeting it heavily this week.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Also, on top of it, Atlanta lost even more of their defensive players last game.
Yeah, it is demolished.
Yeah. All right. So let's go on to running back. Scotty, take it away.
All right, so gonna go back with some James Robinson this week going against Houston. Houston is allowing the most rushing yards per game so far in 2020, and they ranked 29th against the rush in the DVOA rankings. Of course, Houston is also in disarray, which always helps their case with the recent firing of Bill O'Brien. Yeah. His price didn't really go up too much. I mean, he didn't really have a very good week 4, but I guess with that said, his price is still pretty reasonable at 6,700. But yeah, I just like him, this week in this matchup, and it's a pretty high total at 54.5, with Houston favored by 6 somehow. But
yeah, well, I mean, it's probably because Jacksonville hasn't really looked too good whatsoever.
well,
I like James Robinson.
Yeah, no, he's definitely been putting up points. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's showing the league he's got some skill. I don't know how long he'll stick around, but
true.
I definitely like him this week.
Yeah,
I guess I'll go with one here. I'll go with a little Jerick McKinnon at 5,800. He has proven he deserves a big role on the offense. Even with Mostert returning, McKinnon's looked good, and he was even getting used fairly heavily for his role when Mostert was in there. So I think with what he's shown in Mostert's absence, he's going to carve a bigger role into this offense. And ultimately, I think he's more talented than Mostert. He's just had issues staying healthy throughout his career. So I think with both of them on the field, he's going to be the big producer.
Are we sure Mostert is going to be back?
I'm not sure. He's trending towards that way, but even if he does play, they probably aren't going to give him as big a workload anyways, just coming off injury.
Especially if you got somebody else putting up numbers like that.
Yeah. And they know McKinnon can, break if a little nail drops on him. So I don't expect them to limit Mostert too much if he's active, but I think McKinnon has gotten a role, and even though Mostert got paid, the coaches are there. They see these players play, and McKinnon is the more explosive. Even though Mostert hasn't looked bad, he's looked a lot better than what he was expected to be.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, one that I was looking at, which is on the game that we've all been looking at, is some Todd Gurley sitting at 5,700. He's starting to get some rhythm after last game against Green Bay. Even though Green Bay was brutal, he still managed to get 2 touchdowns. He's going up against Carolina, which is the 31st against the run. He's gotten at least 1 touchdown in every game except for against Dallas. I believe he'll need to get a bit higher of a workload than he's been getting to be able to put up the numbers, but I feel like it could be a possibility that they go for that just to try not to get as much wear and tear against the offense of Carolina passing it.
Yeah, I don't mind a little Gurley. People are kind of weary of him
Yeah,
right now with how he's been performing this season, but he can definitely fall into some touchdowns,
which he has been
against
doing.
that
Yeah. Again, I do think I really would like a higher workload to be able to get his worth, but I feel like this could be a situation where he could get it, and that's why I'm going to be kind of staying on him a little bit.
Well, also, Jones and Ridley aren't 100% right now, so that can always help his workload.
Yeah. Anybody want to go over another one?
I got one. If the game happens,
Mm-hmm.
Damian Harris at 4,300. Fresh off IR, he put up 100 yards on 17 carries against the Chiefs defense, which is a pretty tough defense.
Yeah, they were using him a lot.
Broncos defense is barely holding together, and New England has the offensive line to bully them. While the upside is a little capped because Harris doesn't really, he didn't have any targets last week. It doesn't look like he's going to be used as any sort of pass catcher.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at 4,300, we really only need him to score about 15 points to exceed his value for that salary.
Yeah.
So you add a touchdown to those 100 yards, which he's more likely to get that against Denver than he is against that Chiefs defense. You know, he's hit the value mark, and if he gets multiple ones, then you've got, you know, a boom player for your price point.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. And I'm going to go ahead and start us off with that one. And again, I feel like I've really focused on that game that we've all been focusing on again. I'm going to look at some Robbie Anderson. I just think it's a really cheap stack. Like you said before, it's one of the highest game totals at 55 points. He's sitting at 5,900, so a really good deal there. He's been averaging super high points. I'm blown away that he hasn't gone up in price. Besides the game against the Chargers, he's been averaging 100 yards a game and almost 10 targets a game. After seeing Rodgers tear apart the Atlanta's broken defense with third and fourth string receivers, going up against a wide receiver one with Robbie Anderson, I think he should be able to get a lot of targets and potentially get some points off of those and some touchdowns.
I mean, I definitely like Rodney Anderson. In my notes,
really
I just put all Atlanta and Carolina receivers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I will say if there's one I really like, it's DJ Moore, just because he's been underperforming his volume. And the past few weeks, they've been targeted about the same, but Rodney Anderson's come out on top. Mm-hmm. Eventually, we're going to get a DJ Moore week. Yeah. But I mean, even just double stacking Anderson and Moore, I think Moore might provide you a little more leverage. Not much, not enough to be like a sneaky play with him going up against Atlanta. But I definitely like those. Another guy I like in a different game would be Robert Woods, 6,400. Just because Washington's a pass funnel defense, and I mean, there's a good chance they can sort of stop that running game against LA's line. He's going to have a great game, him and Cup.
So you choose Woods over Cup?
Yeah, because I just like Woods over Cup. I think he's a better player.
Gotcha.
I don't think Cup's bad, but Robert Woods is in his own little tier, in my mind at least.
Gotcha. Scotty, what's your pick?
So mine's definitely going to be a little bit of a risky one, but I am liking some Brandon Cooks going against Jacksonville. He's sitting at a really good price point at 4,100. Again, it is a high total at 54.5, and Jacksonville is currently dead last in the DVOA rankings against the pass. He's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start this year. He hasn't really done a whole lot, which I think is going to be enough of a reason for him to kind of be underrated. Apparently, he's been dealing with some injuries, so he hasn't quite been his old self. So hopefully, I think this is going to be the first week where he's close to 100%, which hopefully means he can sneak up on some people and get some points for Houston and fantasy players.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien is gone right now, so who knows what the interim coach is going to do. Maybe he'll switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's just going to bring life to that offense, or that whole team with him being gone. I don't know if y'all ever heard it, but it was Matt Kelly and Evan Silva did just a full breakdown on the dysfunction of Bill O'Brien and the Texans organization this offseason.
Wow. Well, I mean, he did get rid of one of the best receivers for nothing, pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, but they went back before that. They tracked it through his whole career. He's been a hothead all throughout his time, and how he just sort of bullied the Texans franchise into letting him become the coach and the GM and ruin their franchise after the owner died and his wife was running it. It's just,
wow.
I mean, if you haven't heard it, it's definitely a good listen.
Wow. Yeah, I hadn't heard that. I mean, I knew he was awful, but I didn't know all the details behind it. Anybody want to cover another wide receiver real quick?
I'll give you another one. I like some Isaiah Ford at 3,500. In case you don't know who he is, he plays for Miami. I mean, he's not the most household name football player, so his workload. He's a slot receiver for Miami. He's priced at 3,500, and his workload has been growing over the past few weeks. And the 49ers defense is a little bit banged up. Miami might be able to sort of hang and make this a game. I think this could possibly be one of those sneaky blow-up games that you don't really see coming this week.
Do we know if Garoppolo is playing?
If Garoppolo is playing with the high ankle sprain, I don't know
how effective he'll be. Not that he's been too effective.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be any better than Nick Mullins in there with it. Just coming off that, it really depends with quarterbacks, but he's not going to be able to move around as well. And I'm just sort of planning on
Mullins playing
on that foot is going to feel a little funny to him.
Gotcha.
And sometimes he throws some funny looking balls anyway, so I don't know how y'all feel about him. But
yeah, I mean, I've basically stayed away from San Francisco almost completely this week. Just because I don't know what to expect with it. I feel like it's pretty unpredictable right now.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Mike, go ahead and start us off with some tight end.
All right. Let's see. Tight end this week, I'm going to go with some Ian Thomas at 3,400. He was kind of a late round target this offseason in drafts, and he's just vastly underperformed people who had hopes for him. He could barely get a target week one, but week one he was also coming off of injury. His routes have been increasing each week. His targets have been increasing each week, and last week he caught a touchdown. He is trending up, and don't really know how many people have been noticing it, because he did catch a touchdown. He didn't post a huge score, so I'm expecting not necessarily low ownership, but not high ownership on a cheap value tight end here.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I didn't really consider him because of the fact that he hasn't been catching it, but because I'm sitting with 5 targets and 2 receptions, and I thought about him and I looked at him and I kind of strayed away. But you could be right. I mean, he's definitely under the radar in my opinion. But one that I was looking at to kind of go along with Scotty's pick there is some Evan Ingram's. He's sitting with a high game point total at 54 points. Danny Dimes, he's leaning on almost all passing since Saquon Barkley is out. Dallas is 8th against the run, so it's going to kind of shut down that run with their really subpar running backs anyway. Should be, passing fest. Ingram's only 4,600, and Dallas has a super weak secondary.
Yeah, I don't mind some Evan Ingram. He hasn't shown up yet this season, but he's definitely always capable.
Yeah. I mean, he's sitting at like kind of a solid base, no big, huge games, but I think he's reasonable, and hopefully he gets some of those receptions. All right, Scotty, your pick.
So this is going to be a bit of a weird one because this is going to be kind of a game that might not even happen, but I am liking some Jonnu Smith against Buffalo if the game does occur. He is sitting at 4,900, which isn't too expensive for a tight end. It is a 49-point total, which I know is like not quite on the higher end, but it's still a fairly high total. And I think both of these teams aren't as good on defense as they were last year, so I think this could be a bit of this could be a high-scoring game, has that potential in my opinion. And I think also factoring the fact that now Corey Davis is going to be sitting out with COVID-19, and AJ Brown doesn't seem like he's quite 100% yet. He was a limited participant in practice today. But yeah, Jonnu Smith's finally kind of taking that next step and stepping into that lead tight end role for the Titans, especially now that Delaney Walker's not there anymore. He's averaging just over 6 targets a game, and he's finally getting more involved in this offense, and averaging 16.4 DraftKings points per game. But again, we got to make sure this game's going to actually happen.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I looked at him and thought about taking notes on him, but I was like, what's the point?
Right.
I was just like, man, let me just stay away from that. But I 100% agree because he was definitely a target of mine.
Yeah, I think of all the games that are in question this week, that one's the least likely to happen, and that's just I don't hate the pick. I just don't think he's going to be usable.
Kind of agree. I hate to say it. But I do like the pick. But, yeah. Scott, to go ahead and lead us off with your defense pick of the week.
All right, so I'm actually liking some Colts going against the Browns. They're a little on the higher end at 3,300. They're not quite at like the top, like they're not quite close to the 4,000 mark. But the Colts are actually like the number 1 defense in the league right now, and they actually have the most DraftKings points per game amongst defenses. I think people might be a little worried about playing them against a Browns team that's coming off of a big game against Dallas, but if there's a team that can corral the Browns back in, it'll definitely be the Colts.
I like it, and I like the jab at Cleveland. So I'll take it.
Yeah, the Colts defense, it has been legit so far. Their only knock is a little bit like the Patriots last season, is that they just haven't played too many tough teams to really shut down, but they definitely have been
Pretty shut down.
The best defense in the league so far.
Well, the first one I wanted to go ahead and start off with the team that completely shut down the other one before they even start. Tennessee Titans, spreading that COVID, so they don't even have a game. But no, just joking around about that one. But one that I think Mike will automatically disagree by a statement he made earlier. I really like the Denver defense. I'm expecting them to be playing against Stidham or Hoyer as the starting quarterback. Currently, there's no point total out there. As we've seen, Cam is QB. They're pretty good, but without him, they're very subpar. I expect turnovers, sacks, and at least an interception or two, regardless of who plays. With Hoyer getting 1 interception, Stidham throwing 2. New England's strongest point is their run game right now, which the Broncos are pretty good at defending. And yeah, just hoping they can get some points off scaring away a really bad quarterback.
See, I don't think the Broncos are that good against the run right now.
I mean,
because look what Ronald Jones did to him last week, and that wasn't even like a good game for a running back, but it was still 100+ yards. And I mean, they kind of got lit up. They've taken a big hit at linebacker.
But if you look at their rankings on here, they're the 5th against running backs.
Yeah, but I mean, they started off a lot more healthier than they are right now. They took a lot of losses. A lot of times that number can be misleading. A lot of times it's still hanging on to week week 2 numbers, and the following weeks haven't really been enough to bring it, quite down.
I knew I was going to get some disagreement.
I'll say this: if Hoyer starts, then definitely. I don't think, even though Stidham had 2 interceptions, one of them wasn't his fault,
and the other one,
the other one sort of came. Yeah, it was kind of in a desperate moment. I don't think Stidham looked that bad when he was playing. Yeah, at first, there were moments, but I expect that. I think.
Well, I'm looking at Denver due to QB jitters.
I just think New England, they've got. I think they're going to control the line of scrimmage, and that I don't see them taking a lot of sacks, and I don't see them. If Hoyer plays, there'll be sacks and picks. If Stidham plays, I don't know about that. If Cam Newton plays, then
they'll spread COVID to everybody.
It's all out the way.
So, what defense are you targeting?
Oh yeah, I do have to pick one, don't I? Okay. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins, because even if Garoppolo plays, he's not going to be quite the same, and if he doesn't, you're going to be looking at C.J. Beathard or Nick Mullins, which who aren't the worst backups in the league, but without this team being a full team, even though they've gotten pieces back, I think there's going to be some errors on the 49ers side, whoever is passing the ball. So I'm looking at a cheap option that's got some turnover upside and possibly get some sacks.
Gotcha. All right. So let's move on to that sneaky pick of the week. And again, I know I'm already going to get some pushback from Mike, but I was thinking some T. Higgins. He was sitting at 4,900, I believe. Again, I'm picking on AJ Green. I just think that Burrow's going to throw for some of that yardage, and somebody's got to get it. T. Higgins has been getting more and more yards. He's been averaging at least 7 targets a week since the second week, and he's definitely becoming more and more viable. I think he's a little bit under the radar, but again, if Burrow gets that 300 passing yards, I think he could be a very good option in there. So, I know your pushback, Mike.
Keep hating on AJ Green, man, but when that hamstring comes back, it never does. If he ever gets over this hamstring thing, he's gonna make you feel really bad for not playing.
I'll wait for that 1 week out of 16. So,
well, watch it be this week, because I'm probably not playing him this week. But
all right, Scotty.
I don't know how sneaky he'll be, but I do like some Eric Ebron going against Philly. Philly's defense has not been very good, and I know Ebron's not as good as Kittle, but Kittle just had a monster game against Philly, with a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Ebron is starting to get a little bit more chemistry with Roethlisberger, so he's at a good price point. I think he's worth a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah, I had him in my notes for tight ends, but we didn't get to go over that. So, but yeah, I 100% agree. I called him that week. He blew up, but thanks to Tennessee, I didn't get to mention him last week.
Yeah, I think Philly's last against tight ends so far in 2020. So it's a good matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him in my notes as well. I definitely like him for the opportunity. I guess my sneaky pick of the week, and this is a big high risk play, but y'all know Kenyon Drake did not do anything against Carolina last week. that is the team to be had on the ground.
100%.
It is looking bad for Kenyon Drake through the first 4 weeks of the season. And if he can't go out there and start doing something against the Jets,
He's going to find himself on another team.
they're going to have to turn to someone who can, and that is going to be Chase Edmonds, who is my sneaky pick of the week. He can produce even on the limited opportunity. 2 out of the 4 weeks, he's outscored Kenyon Drake on his limited opportunity. When he came in and played that week before Drake was traded to the team, I believe he was the RB1 in fantasy that week. This guy can do it. I don't know why they went and signed Kenyon Drake when they had this guy on the roster. He is a legitimate backup in this league, and if he gets the opportunity this week, it's going to be big against the Jets.
Yeah. Plus, he gets quite a few targets as well to tack on some points.
Yeah. He's going to be catching the targets that come to him, and he's probably going to get more than 4.
Yeah, I could see it. 100%.
Yeah, but it's a little more fun than other weeks to go over this past one, except for AJ Green, which I will say there is an asterisk beside that bet because AJ Green did get hurt during the game.
That was not a rule.
He came back.
That was not a rule in the bet.
It was not a rule. But I'm just saying, if my player outscores your player, I don't want your player to get hurt. It always
got hurt.
Yeah, I know, but I'd rather beat you in a bet, both sides going full force. Okay. But regardless, it didn't matter because I told you to play Joe Mixon, who was 3.8% owned, and he was the slate breaker. I mean, that you don't get any better than that. But pretty much all my others were misses. So I will say one thing I did kind of remember this week is that coaches don't always do what they should. Mm-hmm. You've got Jonathan Taylor losing snaps to, was it Jeff Wilson over on the Colts? You've got now the best running back in the league, and you're giving him a split workload with 2 other backs. That's ridiculous. I'm frustrated with coaches after last week, but yeah, Joe Mixon made everything okay.
Right. Made everything worth it.
How about you go on your Tyler Boyd gloat, Brian?
Well, I was pretty happy with my Tyler Boyd, even though, like you said, Joe Mixon did take away from some of that. So he was the ultimate pick of the team, was Mixon. So I agree. Boyd, he did win me the bet against you, but he only put up 16 points, so it wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. But yeah, it definitely wasn't going to win you a ton of money. I did like my Fitzpatrick pick at 5,400. Fitzpatrick put up some pretty good numbers for the game it was. Surprisingly not as high scoring as I expected it, but he still put up his points. I think it was like 24. Let's see. Fitz put up 26 points. So it was solid, and especially at that price point at 5,400. So that was pretty good. Mike Davis, he did his work. So I was pretty happy with that. And then as far as my defensive pick, it did not go too well. So with the Tampa Bay Bucks, they definitely didn't do as much work as I expected. But overall, I had some decent ones. No slate breakers like Mike.
Yeah, well, the Bucks and Mike Davis did show up in the Millie Maker, so they did good enough.
Yeah. All right, Scotty, your review.
All my picks are just kind of middle of the road. None of them really blew up, and none of them really were awful.
I feel that.
Yeah, like Joe Burrow got 19 points. Not good, but not terrible. Robinson got 14. Galladay got 16, I think. Logan Thomas was a bust. And then the Minnesota defense didn't really do much.
Well, now it's time for the gut check. Brian, why don't you start us off?
All right. So I'm going to go for the one that Mike has been pushing so hard against. I'm going to go with some Joe Burrow. Let me pair him up with my sneaky play in there. Again, picking on some AJ Green. And I'm going to go with some T. Higgins as he sneaks above AJ Green.
AJ Green's going to have a 46-point week.
And if he does, I'll just take it as a massive L, I'm just going to go with it. And as far as running back, let me go ahead and get some of that Gurley in there. Again, pretty much anybody from that game I think can go off. Let me look over here. One that I didn't mention that I really liked was some Devin Singletary, but I'm staying away just because that game is probably not going to be played. So I'm going to stay away from that one. And let me go with one that I don't know if I should, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Go with some Zeke. He still puts up the numbers, but I don't know if he's going to put up his worth while he's sitting at 7,800. But I'm still going to go with him. I feel like he's always a solid pick regardless. Let's fill in that defense. I really like Scotty's Colts pick, so I'm going to go with the Colts. I think they're at a good price point, and I think they're going to be worth it in there. And for tight end, I'm going to go with Eric Ebron, like we were talking about. And that leaves me with 6,100 per player right now, and 2 wide receivers and the flex spot open. And I'm going to go with that Robbie Anderson pick in there. Get a little bit of both sides of the ball. And let's see who we got here. I think I'm going to go with that CD Lamb pick. Put him in there. That leaves me with 6,400 in flex. And with that flex spot,
I will add something in here real quick. Just on a little lineup construction this week. With last week with the games getting canceled, especially when the highest total games start getting canceled, going under salary starts to become more of an attractive option, because if those top games get canceled, usually the pricing reflects that. So I'm not saying anything as to how you're building your lineup. I just thought more so in general, thinking about building lineups for this weekend if we get multiple games canceled.
Yeah,
I think the Millie Maker winning one was about 1,500 under.
wow, that's crazy. Well, because I picked on your guy AJ Green so much, I'm gonna go with one of your picks with some Jerick McKinnon, just to show you a little bit of love since I've been picking on your player so much. And that will be my lineup. It's $600 under, so let's do it.
Oh, yeah. All right, Scotty, how about you show us what you got?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in the Daniel Jones pick. And I'm going to go ahead and pair him up with some Ingram. So that'll take care of QB and tight end. Let's look at running back. I think I'm just going to go right down my list and put in some Robinson. And for the other running back, I do really like Gurley this week. I think he'll be one of the better plays from the Atlanta team. And next up, let's go ahead and plug in the Colts defense so we get a better idea of how much money we got left over. And receiver-wise, I'm going to do DJ Moore. I don't want to copy Brian's lineup too much. But yeah, they're very similar in targets, and I mean, Anderson has had more fantasy points overall, but I think they're like 2 targets apart. But yeah, he's due for a blow-up game anytime soon. And gonna go ahead and do some cooks. take advantage of that Jacksonville pass defense. And we can go a little expensive on these last 2 picks. I'm not used to having this much money at this point.
Oh, like Mike said, you can always go under budget.
That's true. Let's get some Tyreek Hill. He's sitting under 7,000 for the first time probably ever. And I really want to do Diggs or Henry here, but I'm too lazy to rearrange all my lineups if that game does get canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do some James Conner. Finish that out. All right, so I think that is going to do it for the Week 5 edition of the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully you can take these picks, go out there, and win you some money. That's going to do it for us until next week. See ya.